انزين سو تكلمنا عن terminologies. انزين عندنا راح يكون دائما study guide terminologies and question to be discussed. انزين عندكم اياها موجوده. انزين طبعا السيناريو انا most likely I would like to focus into a practicum. بالفاينل راح يكون اغلب الدرجه عليه 80%. وبعدين الثيوري بارت راح يكون short answer question نفسها اللي بالستدي جايد. Okay, so is that fair enough?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so you don't have to scatter yourself. With the extra part حتى في review session راح I will eliminate questions يعني سوري مستغلات من study guide واقول لكم ركزوا على هذا وعلى هذا وعلى هذا. عشان I want to me I am more interested into your GIS skill than teaching you spatial epidemiology. لأن مشكلة spatial epidemiology يعني يبي له كورس كامل مو نص كورس عشان اقدر ادش في البارتيكولار كونسبتس الامور هذه كلها. بس at least I get you exposed to certain language. So that's what I'm trying to do is to get you into the language. It's just, you know, again with the ultimate objective. It's so much fun when you watch the results of your epidemiological analysis or investigation in a map. You visualize it. Because let's not forget, in the epidemiology is the study of disease upon the population. Okay, having statistics or bar charts or هذه كلها صار very old norm, you know. However, watching your stuff, حتى مثلا إذا سويتي questionnaire, ممكن أنت you can populate, you know, governments. يعني مثلا أنت based on a response or an outcome, each governance, what is the percentage? So basically, governance can be a variable into you, and then we're gonna learn into the next practicum session how can we do cartographic representations, which is very fun. Okay, and that's basically one of the essential skill اللي أبيكم تتعلمونها هي cartographic representation. We'll talk about them later. Now, continuing in study guide 1, كان السؤال اللي أتوقع وصلنا له why identical repetition of two epidemics is very rare. زين مثل ما قلنا شو من يقول لي يس وهيبة؟
لأنه when a disease first hits an area, we consider that area or location as a compounded immediately, and actually it's difficult to lightening تبع الarea again. حتى مثلا if for example بعيد عنه مثلا وحدة اجتها مثلا كورونا فيروس، يعني صار عندها كوفيد، فهذا رح ما فينا احنا we light her like again and again like كل مرة she get infected. Therefore, it's very rare to repeat two epidemics in one.
Exactly, and adding to this, and then from the book itself, and then this is important since the presence, and I like in that you are trying to understand and you are expressing. That's what I encourage, by the way. Continue on doing this. So, and then the most important sentence is that it is since the presence of the risk factor in place may be due to chance or temporary events. Okay, so now one of the things could possibly occur مثلا إنزين كوفيد يعني خلينا نقول إذا أنا strong aggressive variant more than the delta variant إنزين المشكلة اللي قاعد يصير إذا أنا عندي أول شيء تهت جليب الشيوخ if I don't fix the situation مع جليب الشيوخ أو كذا وش fix حالة العمال اللي هناك. When a new infectious disease hits, it will hit again in the same place hard. Okay? So there is a fixed risk factor. This does not occur frequently. بس يعني قاعد أقول لكم إن ترى إحنا خلينا نقول مثلا من واقعنا what would happen in that time. Okay? However, النقطة المهمة, yes.
I have also a point. Like this, like the repetition of the same exact epidemic is really like impossible in the same case.
Yes.
If we can like say it in this way, because like as we mentioned before, like COVID is not now an epidemic or like a pandemic anymore. It's now an endemic.
Exactly.
Therefore, like having it at the same place, we will not call it epidemic or like a pandemic. We will call it as endemic.
Exactly.
Like,
So,
even if it hits,
yes.
it's not epidemic.
Exactly. Perfect. Well done, Wahiba. Proud of you. Now, adding to this, now in an endemic, طبعا هذا اللي هو science of infectious disease epidemics زين أو pandemics or يعني هذا. احنا عندنا basically the first wave it reaches something called endemic equilibrium. Once it infects as much as it can, it will reach مرحلة توازن, and then it becomes endemic, especially إذا كان highly variable pathogen. However, في other diseases like Ebola or خلينا نقول المرس, those had an event that is called something called die out, in which the variability خلاص the virus have hit a wall in which it cannot mutate more. Okay. To be honest with you, يعني شوف الكوفيد I'm studying the genetics والbehavior ماله, it's so weird من ناحية transmissibility only and the amount of evolution. So there is something weird about it يعني when I look at it and I compare it to past COVID-19 and even flu viruses. Now, when we reach endemic, خلينا نقول عندنا الفلو is endemic, we reach either seasonality, انزين, ونفس الشيء expected with COVID. Most likely wind season will induce COVID infections. Okay, this is what we see. يعني حتى when it hits, it's gonna be with the wind season. So شنو راح يصير عندي؟ يصير عندي seasonal outbreaks. خلاص ما في second wave, third wave, so fourth wave, and I was against this. Okay, now what about the Delta variant? A Delta variant in the science نسميه an outbreak of an emerging strain. It's not a wave. So شنو يصير؟ أنا عندي strains when I have an endemic virus, إنزين، أنت لما تقول لي waves it will be endless. بس دائما أنت عندك circulating strains that are endemic وعندك emerging strain that are more infectious or more hard, and that's natural because شنو أنت في شغلة. Also, I'm not going to teach you unfortunately this, but something called لما نتكلم عن evolution of viruses في شغلة يسمونها selection pressure. Selection pressure forces the gene to mutate, إنزين, عشان يكون الفيروس highly transmissible. And with the Delta variant, the issue is that صار في wide recovery rate وصار في vaccination. It induced the virus to survive. It becomes more transmissible. However, because the vaccination coverage was fast, تشوفون wide in many countries, a Delta variant have hit a wall. You know, it's still circulating, but as not هذا with the vaccine itself. So yes, so that's the idea in that. When it hits the first time as a pandemic, it becomes endemic, and then we have seasonality and outbreaks of emerging strains. Well, you should be specialized in infectious disease pandemics. You have the potential. Why spatial analysis offers no information or whether characteristic of SIB resulted from spatial of. So, why spatial analysis offers no information on whether spatial characteristics of COVID-19 spread resulted from the spatial characteristic of one of its risk factor. غير وهبة. What do you think? غيرها. زهراء ما لك خلق اليوم؟ شهد من خشيتي؟
أنا I wrote إنه initial spatial analysis allows the formulation of etiologic hypothesis. So it gives the hypothesis or hypothesis, but it cannot give the information whether the spatial characteristic results from the multiple risk factors. So the analysis involves just the unraveling of the process involved in the study phenomenon. So they only look at it from يعني, more of descriptive rather than figuring out the single risk factors that are involved.
And you found this answer where?
هون بهذه الصفحة.
هذه الصفحة صح.
Initial spatial analysis sometimes allows the formulation of etiological hypotheses.
Yes. So عندنا هني okay. But often no information on the spatial characteristics of phenomena results from the spatial characteristic of one of risk factor killer. Therefore, may involve unveiling the process involved in the study phenomena. Detection of the risk factor is the first step, allowing particular analysis followed by elimination of intrinsic risk factors, so-called mobile environment risk, before carrying out the spatial analysis on the own mobiles. So هنا لاحظوا هني in general هني احنا because عندنا fixed risk factors or mobile risk factors. Okay. يعني الريسك مرات يمشي و that's what causes the spatial variability. Okay. So basically لما intrinsic risk factors انزين it's very hard to detect يعني we cannot find it يعني it's it's very hard to see or very hard to يعني نطلعها بالتفصيل الدقيق. دائما احنا نشوف اللي هم part of the risk factor يعني هي الايديا انه you cannot يعني go into the deeper risk factors of the place because انت عندك mobile وin mobile risk factors and that's why we cannot have an accurate information or even no information in terms of this.
Doctor, I wrote that the main risk factors of COVID-19 are mobile risk factors, and the main route of transmission, as you mentioned, is airborne. Therefore, we cannot have the physical characteristics of this disease, as it's not in a specific case.
Exactly. That's excellent answer. Exactly. So here, that's a good example in air transmission. Okay, is mobile or very hard ان احنا نطلع الاذر وبعدين في شغله ثانيه غير الموبايل عندك انت الاير ترانسميشن also عندك الانترنسيك فاكتور within the place itself. Okay. So وبعدين بالنهايه نتذكر النقطه الاساسيه اللي قلناها المره اللي طافت اللي هي شنو؟ اللي هي ان احنا الانديفيدوال يعني انا عندي بوينت بروسيس ما اقدر اطلع تفاصيلها الانترستنج ريسك فاكتور مالتها. اوكي سو هني باختصار again عندنا الموبايل موبايل ريسك فاكتورز و that's why it's very hard to نعرف الاكشوال causation. اوكي سو احنا we can form hypothesis in terms of the etiology of COVID زين like مثل ما تكلمنا الاير ترانسميشن بس الاكشوال causation is very hard to determine. Okay, and by the way that's not just with COVID, that's also with other diseases. Okay, so it's the same process يعني. I'm still يعني وايد مو عاجبني لما until this day لما يقولون scientists we don't know, we still don't know, blah blah blah, all of this blah blah blah. That's not really to me acceptable. We don't know and inherent risk factors that are across different diseases, but you say like zero COVID or you say that we have to know everything 100%, that's just not right. Okay? واضحة الفكرة؟ انزين. So for question 10, why? Yes. Yes.
So the spatial distribution of areas across Kuwait must be considered and eliminated to avoid its involvement in the reasoning of the localization of cases. So the risk factors must be eliminated so that the spatial analysis can be focused on the underlying phenomena.
Okay. So in summary, excellent, Joe, الإجابة. When this a study is conducted, the prevalence of diabetes يعني نلاحظ هني the prevalence of diabetes. ولاحظوا هني I'm not doing a spatial analysis. يعني I'm doing just a basic epidemiological analysis. And that's why شنو المشكلة اللي هنا تصير؟ شنو most important assumption of basic statistical analysis? Observation شنو لازم تكون؟ What is the most fundamental assumption of basic statistical analysis? What about the observations? يعني what should be the observations?
Control.
شلون controlled? How do we collect? Yes, random, exactly. شنو معناته random؟ يعني not biased معناته يعني when I collect الcollection يكون شنو؟ يعني أنا الحين عندي observation outcome وعندي risk factors. شنو لازم يصير لما أنا أسوي data collection؟ شنو العلاقة لازم تصير بين outcome والdependent variables؟ sorry independent.
Significant.
لا.
The association.
لا when I do the collection ما له شغل الحين statistical.
okay.
إيه.
When we do the
And I
connection.
don't choose only the interest.
Huh?
There should be controlled people and those with the disease or the risk factor.
Now عندنا الحين outcome وعندنا هذا شنو لازم تكون when I do the collection. Exactly. So basically شنو لازم يصير عندنا independence of observation ما في dependency وعندنا independence of the outcome from the risk factor, and that's why we do study design, okay, because we want to assure this. The problem is, by the wide studies for literature, the spatial dependency is actually a violation of that assumption, okay, because في يعني factors that occur in space and time, and يعني that's why you have to control for that spatial dependency عشان for your statistical analysis to become correct and generalizable. يعني شلون؟ خلينا نقول احنا عندنا هني انا مثلا I collected data on obesity انزين في اريا متروسه مطاعم فاست فود. فالاريا هذه سببت لي شنو؟ لانها متروسه مطاعم وفي يمها بيوت في هذا، فعندي هاي اوبيسيتي، فعندي هني ريسك فاكتور، لكن هذا الريسك فاكتور الريسك فاكتور والاوتكم صاير في بينهم dependency based على اللوكيشن مالهم. That's why you need to remove that dependency, spatial dependence, in order for your basic statistical analysis to work on. Now, how do I remove this? You can do case control. Okay, you can do cohorts. That's why we do again the study design with their elements. However, yet there are dependencies يعني remaining. So that's why في other methods يعني في spatial methods وفي non-spatial methods that actually control that spatial dependency اللي يسوي violation حق هذا. طبعا not everyone is aware of this. Not everyone can do this. That's why تشوفه wide often ignored in the scientific literature. And then because it's not really easy. And then and that's why actually drove me and I get interested in this, and then I learn how can I control it. You can either do it في spatial space-time regression, في advanced technique like Bayesian methods, which does not require the assumption of independence. يعني شنو basically في methods, and that's why يعني that's the fun. في methods in موجودة الحين does not يعني has minimum statistical assumptions. يعني you can move freely with them. يعني it works with dirty data. يعني نسميها the data in general إذا ما كانت هو الديزاين ستايل تكون dirty. That's why there are many developed methods, including حتى اللي قاعد تشوفونه بالسوشيال ميديا. Social media is a dirty data, بس في algorithms and models that can deal with it and can actually extract with dependency فيها عالية انتهى. So that's basically the simple idea of why هذا. Now, why geographical localization of agents is difficult to measure? Yes, Zahra.
Should I answer?
Yes.
So I learned that most agents are mobile and their position can be determined in advance with very poor accuracy, if at all. So for example, the position of patients when available is practically never provided with them accurately, especially in a spatiotemporal route. It's always often predicted and provided only approximately or synthetically with respect to place of residence. So basically because the agents or the risk factors or individuals, whatever is being studied, they're mobile and they move. We can't really pinpoint that position. And if we do, it's very poor accuracy.
Yes. Anyone wants to add? Yes.
We can use it for wild animals, right?
With wild animals is very difficult in terms of tracing, because they don't have boundaries. Okay, that's one another important factors. Yes. And wild animals مشكلتهم بعد إنه شنو؟ إنه they also transmit a lot of agents, source of agents يعني SARS وغيرها أغلبها most actually all infectious diseases are from animal origins.
Mm.
Okay. Is that right? Sounds good. Should I move to the next one?
Yes.
So Tabler's law.
نجاوب عليه دكتور؟
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
It's when the objects are often interdependent according to their proximity. Since the underlying phenomena depend on proximity, this is what geographers call Taubers law or the first law of geography.
Mm-hmm. So it's a very basic
Concept.
عندنا spatial relationship عندنا فيه بينهم proximity زين and that's what creates يعني the first law of geography.
Yes.
Okay. So basically again احنا الحين قاعد ندشش قاعد ناخذ اشياء وايد من geography and we mix it with the health phenomena. So what is the advantage of what, which is by the way يعني so he going to this why what is the advantage of aggregation غير خديجة ما حليتي ترى لازم تحلونه next
Yes.
هذا yes
If demographic data are available, it's allow the calculation of rates, proportion and ratio in order to evaluate probability and risks. Also, it allows the use of other data characterizing the aggregation.
excellent okay so احنا so عندنا هني الادفانتج where is this is on the right page
لا دكتور.
هني صح يس يا كا هذه اوكي سو احنا دائما one of the easiest طبعا في عند البوينت analyzing البوينت process is not really easy انزين يعني انا when I analyze points it is possible في لها methods بس it's not very easy because احنا عندنا other interesting risk factors individual data قلنا ال interesting risk factors are very hard to measure الامور هذه كلها فدائما راح تشوفون اغلب الاوضاع يعني مثلا لما تدشون على السي دي سي ولا WHO هذا دائما they work on aggregation يعني individual data are very easy to analyze لما تكون السامبل سايز شويه صغيره بس لما انا يكون عندي like thousands and or millions of data points خلاص تصير الماب كلها black يعني it's very impossible to measure يعني مثلا let me show you this So هذه كنا الكلاسترز اللي نسويها حق هذا. Now if I tell him show me the points بس خلاص صارت it's almost يعني it doesn't make sense لما تصير البوينتس وايد صح ولا لا؟ that's where we resort حق شنو؟ we resort حق اللي هي الاجريجيشنز. and from aggregation we can شنو قلنا؟ we can calculate rates, proportions, عندنا population at risk. We can in certain areas. يعني احنا مثلا عندنا two types of aggregation. We can do it by governance and we can do it by area. لما طبعا by area لما يكون عندنا large sample size، لما تكون عندنا smaller sample sizes we will do governance. And then this is where we see إن احنا how can we choose the aggregation unit. تكون على either area or governance or maybe also schools, okay, health districts. So this is basically an aggregation. Okay, so what is the difference between an agent and a unit under the umbrella of spatial analysis? ها صوت جديد. ما عندنا صوت جديد. بس الأربعة. Okay, Zahra.
So an object is an element described by attributes or variables, and the objective and the agent is often used for mobile objects.
Will unit
Immobile.
exactly. Okay, so just that's the part of the language that we are trying. And then عندنا اللي هو شنو؟ numeric attribute, qualitative attributes, and Boolean attributes. هذا very simple question يعني ممكن يجي بالامتحان عادي يعني. Which is straightforward صح؟
دكتور حق ال one example يعني مثلا النوميريك attribute يعني يقول يعني measurement of something.
Yes يعني أنت عندنا مثلا spatial distribution of age.
Yes.
That's a count.
numeric.
Yeah.
يعني
عندنا qualitative qualitative attribute اللي هي تكون شنو categorical.
الأماكن.
Yes يعني males and females distribution of males and females.
Yes.
البولين اللي هي شنو؟
True or false. So
two outcomes.
yes.
Yes. Which is binary.
Yes.
Okay. And then what is the difference between continuous and discrete domains? Yes, Wahiba.
Continuous domain is a set of input values that consist of all numbers in an interval.
ما سمعت مرة ثانية عيدي.
Is a set of input values that consists of all numbers in an interval. For example, 1, 1.25,
Yes.
like such as height and weight. And
Yes.
these stuff. In a spatial analysis, a continuous domain studies the absolute position of a set of events in the space and focuses on the spatial distribution of the values of an attribute rather than the localization of set of objects. For an example, in spatial analysis, the position of lightning impacts and the position of earthquakes. However, the direct domain is a set of input values that consists of only certain numbers in an interval, for example, 1, 2, 3, and 4. For example, age is a discrete domain. However, in spatial analysis, it focuses on the position of a studied set, is more difficult to apprehend as it must take into account the absolute position of the domain. For example, FD, which refers to domain, represents a set of villages. The goal of the study is to study the position of infected villages with respect to the position of the set of the villages. If we study the clustering of infected villages, the calculation will consider the clustering of the villages, not only the infected villages, which is not part of the study.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. So to summarize this, continuous domain شنو يصير؟ عندي I am يعني let's make it simple. By the way, that's part of the analysis اللي أنا أشتغل عليهم. عندنا أنا continuous spatial phylogeography and then discrete phylogeography, which is basically combining genetics and space and time analysis. Continuous space معناته أنا عندي longitude and latitude domain. يعني point process معناته شنو؟ ما عندي boundaries. Okay. زين. That's when I say هني قاعد يقول لك earthquakes. Earthquakes are not constrained within a domain. دائما ما لها boundary. فدائما يكون ال distribution مالها continuous because ما هذا. discrete domains تكون لها boundary units. ممكن تكون countries. ممكن تكون areas. Okay. And this is where I either do my spatial analysis on a continuous space where there is no boundaries, and it's say my units or my measurements based on longitude and latitude, or I can do it discretely, in which I use my units. Spatial units are discrete, which is areas, villages, all of this. واضحة الفكرة؟
Yes.
That's the idea of. إنزين.
دكتور عندي سؤال
Yes.
حق question 16 so an example of a Boolean attribute is like calculated yes or no.
Yes, exactly. Well done. Anything that has a binary,
Outcome.
yes.
أنت واقف التصوير ولا؟
So عندنا الحين no بنكمل.
تمام. هو كل
احنا
كلاس؟
تو خلصنا نص ساعة صح؟ 30 minutes.
إيه.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna continue مع هذا. إنزين. Why visual interpretation of map cannot be used as proof of a research hypothesis? شيدا ما حليت شيء؟
لا لا
ليش ما حليت شيء؟
ما حليت شيء ما كان عندي وقت.
دور زهراء، شنو زهراء؟
Because mapping allows a visual interpretation of results, and therefore it is used for geographic arguments or the formulation of hypotheses, which is then refuted or validated by the statistical test. So they. Yeah.
شنو هيبة؟
Actually, I didn't answer something
Yes.
I'm good for you. As I answered that because it mixes several aspects and
Yeah.
has no proof value.
Exactly. So احنا it's basically it's the same idea. لما سألتوني qualitative research. يعني you cannot really يعني formulate يعني research hypothesis usually from qualitative research. لأن ما في true statistical analysis. ما في null hypothesis و alternative hypothesis. It's the same thing as visualizing. Okay? لما تشوفين maps فيها counts. ما you cannot make arguments or anything إنه والله هذه الاريا مثلا الحمراء أكثر من هالاريا معناته أن هالاريا is at risk أكثر من هالاريا. في other factors we have to do some analysis to هذا يعني statistical significance الأمور هذه كلها. زين. So again guys next week الstudy guide المفروض كلكم حالين
إن
عشان
شاء الله.
I want to hear other voices, okay?
إن شاء الله.
List 8 common steps for descriptive spatial analysis, which is هذا يعني So عندنا اللي هو شنو study the overall characteristic of the individual means frequencies okay commonly يعني ترى على فكرة again احنا الكل اللي خذ الspatial epidemiology or spatial statistics mostly I'm transferring what we learned in statistics and epidemiology into a map okay so عندنا أول شيء اللي هي overall characteristic of set individual means frequencies independent localization of aggregate area يعني أقدر أطلع كل area المين age واعطيها لون اوكي ولها legend راح نشوف هذه الشغله في ال other exercises I can do counts of people who are males and females as a distribution you know between areas بعدين conduct visual analysis mapping and graphic representation of the observed situation trend services and then allows for the overall vision of phenomena spatial tendencies it depends on the type of so basically بعد ما اسوي حساباتي I transfer them into a map. Okay. بعدين classic temporal analysis. Classic temporal analysis دائما احنا نحب ان شنو we have both visual interpretation of a map and then we can also do an epidemic curve for a disease. Okay. So the good thing in احنا we need it's good to have a map and then we have اللي هو to show the spatial distribution. And then it's good to have an epidemic curve to show a temporal distribution over time of cases, okay? Aggregate individual according to qualitative attribute, aggregation object. I start to formulate issues and then I start to aggregate people by risk factors. زين؟ So the steps هذه إن الحين شنو أجهز الداتا مالتي حق ان احط عندي outcome وعندي risk factors. Okay, so هني إيش بدينا شنو؟ we are trying to form association, just like statistical analysis. Okay. Then characterize overall spatial attributes. طبعا بعد ما اسوي statistical analysis I start the characterization. زين. شنو هي significant areas اللي فيها high statistical significance or variation. زين. فهني ابتدي اطلع الفيجوال ريزلت. مثل ما تلاحظون it's exactly the same. تذكرون steps of doing a hypothesis او statistical analysis هذا it's basically the same here مع spatial analysis. هل عندي سؤال؟ Identify of the overall tendencies. طبعا we will find this. كل هالامور راح نشوف tendencies, trends, find distinctive places, sources, point sources, أماكن that are notable. كل هذا بعدين راح تبين معاكم لما هذا. So basically it's a natural process. You start with basic statistics, summaries, qualitative, and then you transfer it into quantitative, and you start to get things out of it. What is the major advantage of localization of individual in spatial analysis? Yes, Wahiba?
Localization of individuals allows many analysis. So when the data are available at the individual's level and the latter are accurately localized, all statistical, spatial and spatio-temporal analysis are possible.
Yes. طبعا دائما individual localization it is the finest spatial unit يعني it's the point itself, and this allows us to do more يعني complicated or sophisticated analysis. انزين useful domain. So عندنا هنا type 5 common of methods of spatial methods or analysis. زين اللي هي شنو؟ اللي هي أول شيء first order analysis, provide information on the characteristics of the overall spatial autocorrelation, heterogeneity, over spatial tendencies, centrality, patterns. All of these will نتكلم عنها. زين so عندنا first order analysis, provide information on the characteristic of the overall spatial distribution. يعني it's like كأني سويت epidemic curve أو حطيت النقاط على الخريطة سيدة. Okay. بعدين second order, provide information on local variation, excess risk clusters, hot spots. مثل ما راويتكم الساعة خرائط الكلاسترز مالت الكوفيد. Okay, هذا second order. Detection of place and space, points or surfaces that have specific characteristic with respect to the spatial distribution. عندنا هني centrality, attraction, repulsion. Centrality في event قاعد تشوفينه في الخريطة it's central to the other events. في major cluster إنزين. في repulsion راح تشوفين في directionality إنزين. هذه كلها بعدين راح نشوف لها examples. Estimation or interpolation. Interpolation شنو يعني معناته؟ أنا مو عندي multiple points أسوي لهم smoothing. يعني بدل لا يصيرون points I smooth the points up. إنزين. فشنو اللي يصير؟ تشوفين عندي خريطة فيها بقع يعني أماكن قامجة وأماكن فاتحة. إنزين مثل شلون؟ شوفين إذا عندي good example. شوفوا هني هذا السموثينج يعني انا البوينتس هذه كالوكيشنز سويت لها سموثينج صار في اماكن حمراء الاماكن الحمراء يعني كل ما يصير احمر كل ما يكون عندي نقاط اكثر اجريجيتد فانا مثل سويت سموثينج هذا فهذا يسمونه interpolation and I start to connect and show what will be the distribution يعني اذا شلت الطبقه هذه وعندي بس نقاط I don't know what's going on what is the trend you see what I mean إنزين so What are the objective of using spatial analysis and health geography? Yes, Khadija?
The use of spatial analysis in the health geography particularly address the problem of health inequality, the analysis of healthcare system, and the problem of supply and demand matching. For
So
traffic.
عندنا شنو؟ هني basically to translate أنا when I plot things on maps I can see مثلا إن عندي high clusters in جليب وفي أماكن فيها low clusters, so there is an inequality here. I can mobilize resources بالخريطة. عندي مستشفيات I'm plotting them وأشوف إنه والله المستشفى على الخريطة وايد صاير عليه الضغط ووايد قاعد يصير فيه emergencies and this is where I need to shift to other وأشوف لي routes. فالأمور هذه كلها. وsupply and demand, traffic accidents and road safety طبعا قاعد تشوفون إن هذه very critical وما تسمعون فيها ترى في بالكويت صح؟ لما سمعت رحتوا health شفتوا دكاترة ما حد يتكلم عن هالأمور صح ولا لا؟ بس don't you think this is important?
Yes.
Yeah, يعني it's weird and that's why you know and that's funny in they gave me like only 6 weeks or 7 weeks to teach you this, which by the way as you see it's actually not possible to teach يعني as an overall هذا. Some people treat this as just like a tool وتاخذينها بworkshop وانتهى الموضوع. It's not. يعني قاعد تشوفون الكتاب وتشوفون فيه plenty of concepts that are critical. إنزين. What are the main statistical tests used in epidemiology for the comparison between two groups? Yes. Yes. Question 6, yeah, excellent. Anyway, question 6 and 7 ما راح أسألكم عنها. You can actually ignore them.
ترى موجود أساسا موجود.
بعد الصفحة.
أوكي.
Yes. So يعني questions هذول already خذيناهم. يعني حتى أنا I will delete them for next
أي
year.
ما شفتهم.
Doctor, for the assignment, do we need to answer them?
شنو؟
For the assignment, do we need to answer
No.
them?
No. ما أدري أنا حتى ليش حاطهم بس يعني أنا that was the work of last year بس I'm trying to refine the assignments more وكذا أساس to adapt them. في أحد عنده question؟